We're waiting for Rachel here. Rachel, do you? Oh, you did join. Okay. Are you? Did you request yet, Rachel? Or let me see if I can. I got you. I'll send you the request. We'll get you in here. I always have to adjust after. There she is.
Hi,
Hello, Rachel. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's nice to actually meet you face to face after connecting on social media to actually
Yes,
see each other.
I know. I know. Thanks so much for having me on today.
And I appreciate you making the time because I am sure you have a wide variety of good stories you'll be able to share.
It
But
was hard to pick a few, but yeah.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. Just to give background too, so everyone knows, the reason I chose to start doing this series of lives was in our line of work, what Rachel does, what I do, what many people I've interviewed on here, what we do, it's our job to communicate facts and information to people about animals, but also keep it engaging and fun. So we kind of get our spiels, we get our information, our talking points, and those are all well and good and important, and they do work. But it's also kind of fun to get that personal story, step away from the spiel for a little bit, and get that personal story about that engagement, that excitement, because I think a lot of people can connect to us as humans more and then fall in love with the animals that route too by having that connection. So that's why I started doing this. Um,
Love it.
but before I jump into it, though, I want to ask you because it's something we're all dealing with. Although we're seeing more things change to allow things to open. But for you, did the pandemic and the closure of things, did that impact your work, or were you more the essential worker side of things where you had to go into work anyways?
Yes, so I was a part of the essential team that was still at work. So I never stopped going in. It did change our hours a little bit. Unfortunately, as it happened everywhere, not all staff was always able to be there. Um,
Right.
and so we did have a little bit of changing with that. We had a lot of really long, hard days. We had a lot of good days too, because at the end of the day, we have to be there for the animals and we don't
Right.
want them to be suffering from what's going on as much as possible. And so, yep, I was a part of the essential crew. I had a lot of traveling that was nicked back from it, obviously so, and which I know I'm not anywhere close to being alone on that one. And so, yeah, we just actually opened up back to the public yesterday, though. So
Oh,
I
good.
am super stoked to see faces on our sidewalks again. And everyone's making fun of me because when we set our habitats, I just want to go to the windows and wave to people because I miss having them there so much. So we still have a lot of social distancing guidelines in place. We've taken back a lot of our tours, interactions, things like that, just for the safety of not only the public and ourselves, but obviously the animals as well.
Right.
Working with great apes, you have to, since they can catch everything that we can, we have to mitigate that. So
And and I kind of jumped ahead a little bit. I know who you are and what you do, but it dawns on me that there might be people who are a part of my audience that aren't following you yet, but I'm sure by the end of this they will be. But introduce yourself as far as who are you, where do you work, what do you do? I completely skipped that part because I was like, jump into the conversation.
no, it's totally okay. I'm excited to get started. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Rachel. Currently, I work with gorillas and chimpanzees. I've worked with a handful of animals before this. I have dogs, Pomeranians. Excuse me. So, one second.
Sure. The kids, they're always making noise in the background.
He always likes to come on any Instagram videos because he
Oh,
hears voices and then he's like, "Who's talking? I want to be a part of it." So this is Chopper.
hey,
Um,
Chopper,
who's
how are
that?
you?
So I worked in marine mammals before I went to great apes. Worked with a wide variety of small animal species, and I also worked in stranding, so rescue and rehabilitation before then. Um, I was pretty lucky a couple of years ago to have a video go viral that gained me a social media audience, which I wanted to make sure I could help promote, everything that we promote on a daily basis at the zoo,
Right.
promote all those conservation things and whatnot. I'm really fortunate that it's grown into quite a few things. So we can talk about some of those later in the episode because
Sure.
we kind of talked about that a little bit. So we can talk about that later. But yeah, right now my days are, I'm kept humble by a silverback gorilla and this floofball right here.
I love the colorations there. It's so very cute.
Yeah, I got him from the pound, so I'm not sure how anyone could ever give up this face, but
Right? Look at that.
yeah.
Adorable. Adorable. Well, okay, aside from finding him at the pound, I want to know what was your most memorable animal experience?
Okay. So background, I think a lot of the followers probably know that you ask for what's the most memorable experience. And of
Right.
course, I was the annoying person that emailed Rick back and said, I need at least 3. So I'm sorry. Thanks for the
It's all
patience.
right. No, it's one of those things where it's like if we can fit in 4, we'll do 4. I mean, I always it's kind of selfish on my part. I love these stories. I enjoy this as much as anybody else. So
It's so
go into it.
fun.
Which one do you want to talk about first?
So the first one is the first one that I want to talk about is when I taught a gorilla how to do a handstand. So it was a fun behavior to teach, and it was one of those things that it reigns as such a special memory to me for so many reasons. But I think sometimes what people don't understand about working with animals is that connection that you build with them where it's unlike anything you'll ever get when you're working with a human, right? I see that smirk because you know exactly what I'm
I know
talking
exactly
about.
what you're talking about. I just got goosebumps thinking about it.
Yeah, and so, we communicate with humans on a daily basis about with all these verbal things, right? I'm communicating with my hands, my face, my words right now.
Right.
Animals we have to get a lot more creative with. And so when we breach a communication barrier with humans, that's exciting enough when 2 people can agree on a common ground. But when you can do that with an animal that you can't speak with, it's that much cooler. And so when I was trying to teach, we had at the time he was 12-year-old male gorilla. So he's a 12-year-old boy, all full of energy. And so what we wanted to do was try to find ways to help him expend that in a positive way so he wasn't poking the girls and doing other things that 12-year-old boys do.
Right.
And so I was out at our acrylic glass one day interacting with him, and he was mimicking me. So when I'd put my feet higher and higher, he would put his feet higher and higher. And then I was like, I wonder if we could get him to do a handstand.
So let me, real quick, when you're putting your feet on there, are you both kind of facing each other and he just put his feet, you put your feet up there and he put, or are you already in the position to start doing the handstand?
Yeah, so it's almost like a wall climb. So like if this is the acrylic window, on either side, we're like, these are feet. They go up like this.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So I can show the picture of the final result, but I want you to tell more of the story. Then I'll reveal the photo. How's that sound?
Okay, perfect. And so it was, as an animal trainer, as I'm sure you can know, Rick, it's something that, we take a lot of small steps to have something or make an amazing behavior out of nothing, right? Then we take small steps just like you learn how to add before you learn how to do subtraction, multiplication, calculus. And so when we're taking those steps with animals, it's really cool when they get that aha moment. But the thing that was so cool about this handstand with me was I helped teach Bolingo how to trust himself because he knew what I was asking for way before he did the behavior. He's like, you are crazy lady. How am I going to ever put my feet above my head and do this behavior? But if you think about when your parents or whoever it may have been taught you how to ride a bike when you were a kid, you were scared.
Yeah.
You didn't trust them. You didn't trust yourself. You said, hold on to the back of me the whole time. And that was the same connection that I felt when I taught Bolingo how to do a handstand because he did it and his face was like, what? I can't believe I just did that. And then I cheered and he was dancing, and it was one of those things that, I mean, I always had a good relationship with him, but that solidified our relationship working together. And the things that we've been able to do together, we get each other a lot more, which people, if they haven't worked with animals yet, may think this person is crazy. What is she saying? But it was really cool to watch him get so excited about it. And it's one of his favorite behaviors to do still to this day.
And if people scroll back in your account a little bit, you have the images and some videos of you working with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and what makes it even more impressive too, I think a lot of people who don't work in zoos don't realize work like this is done in protective contact. So you're not able to physically manipulate him and show him where you want him to be. He's got to kind of figure this out. So here's that image. There we go. So there's what you sent me. That's what you do in the handstands.
Oh, I just saw Senzu pop up on the screen. I don't know who wrote that because it already disappeared. But yeah, that's his kiddo. Or his dad, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it says he gets it from his daddy Senzu, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the acrylic wall you're talking about, and where I remember seeing the video that went viral and everything. That was also in that same kind of space there, right? Where you guys were doing the different things?
Yeah, so I think this screenshot is from that specific video. There's a couple because I I like to tape a lot of sessions just so I can learn from it, because
Right. Well, yeah.
sometimes, yeah, you're in a session sometimes and you don't understand what you're doing wrong. And then if you get it on tape and you watch it back, you're like, well, Rachel, that was a dumb move. Why did you do that? How is this animal supposed to know what you're asking for?
Right.
Yeah. And so I had a lot of these video sessions recorded so that way I could kind of go back and look at them. And so I was really lucky to get it on this, and I had no idea it would go viral, but it was nice to be able to share that moment.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that it was such an important moment for me too. So it was fun.
And I gotta say, you know, having been in animal care and animal training for over 25 years now, the days before videotaping was easy to do. The concept is you could record your sessions so you could go back and critique yourself and find your mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
That was just not so. You'd have to rely on a second set of eyes if someone was available, and then they had to interpret what they saw, and you weren't sure what, you know, what
Right.
this, that, and the other. Whereas now everyone's got these great video cameras in their pocket, so not only does it allow for you to capture something that can go viral, but also, I mean, it's so wonderful. It's a great training tool to be able to set up and be able to record yourself. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know if, you know, again, it depends on who the audience you're watching right now, but we can sometimes give the wrong cue, or give a mistake in our bridging of the behavior or whatever that makes it for poor communication to the animal. So, you know, the video, being able to capture that and correct yourself is a huge asset.
I agree. I am so sorry. One second.
Oh, don't be sorry. No.
Excuse me.
The kids are in trouble.
He is. You know, there's a lot of stereotypes about Pomeranians, and they're all true. He likes to talk a lot, so we'll keep him over here so he feels like he's a little bit
part of the conversation. It works for me. That's no big deal.
Yeah, no, but you're completely right. And you know, the thing building off of what you said, Rick, was that, you know, I love to have people watch my sessions and critique me and kind of have that feedback system at work, but there's so many times that I do things not only in my training sessions but in everyday life that I think I'm doing one thing and I'm doing a completely different thing. And so people make fun of me at work a lot because they'll say like, oh, Rachel, are you upset? You look mad or upset. And I'm like, no, I'm thinking about lunch or food. it's, you know, going back to that communication, it's what am I telling this animal? What am I telling this person? And how do I get better at that? And watching those videos, and you know, people can tell you one thing, but their bias is also included in that. So watching those videos, you can really sit back and hone in on what you're doing. So
yeah. So after the handstand, he got all excited. He danced a little bit. What else have you been able to do then to build on basically teaching him he can trust himself? Has anything else come from that beyond the handstand?
So the behaviors, oh gosh, we've worked on a lot. So he's learned his shapes and colors. With the trusting himself, right now we're working on a really cool behavior. So it's not as much trusting himself physically as having a new way to think. So we're doing a behavior called wait and go. And so he had to learn, you know, when the wait cue is up, you don't do any of the behaviors until the go cue is given. It's kind of learning that patience, memory, recall. Ooh. And all of that. And so he's learning that right now. And it was funny because I've been teaching it to him for a while, and COVID kind of threw our scheduling off a little bit. But just, what was it, a week or two ago, I started adding multiple behaviors. So he got it with all the behaviors to where, you know, wait, do X, Y, Z, and then go. And he would get really excited. And then I was thinking it was time to move on. And so I started adding 2 behaviors to it. And so he would anticipate and be like, oh, she's asking for foot or she's asking for back. And then he would do it. And then I would just, you know, give a couple seconds, pause, wait him out. And then he'd look at me like, I was right, you're wrong. And so the first time, though, that the cool thing about this animal, and he just has my heart so much, but this animal is that when he realized he's wrong and he's like, oh, she's asking for something new, he laughed. And he does this thing where he sits at the mesh and he's like, ugh, and he like repositions himself like, I'm ready to learn. And so we had that moment last week with this behavior. So he's doing pretty good with that, getting excited to be able to, you know, do multiple things and have that memory recall with it. And it's going to take a while to do, but he's learned that. Another really cool, I guess, mental trust, you could say, that he worked through and we're done with now is innovate. Have you heard of the innovate behavior, I'm assuming?
No. So they get to choose and build behaviors together on their own then?
Yeah,
That one?
exactly.
Okay.
So it's do whatever you want, just don't repeat the same thing twice.
Right,
And
right.
so he's doing really good with that. And he's come up with some crazy stuff. Like he'll take multiple enrichment devices, he'll sit on one, put one on his head, and like spin around. And he loves doing all of that stuff. But again, it's giving him that ability to dictate what's going on in the session. And it's not up to me, right? I mean, I'm there to take care of him. You know, we're there to make sure that they have the best overall welfare. But at the end of the day, if he's not getting anything from the session, what am I doing there, right?
Right,
So
right.
he loves that and doing that. So that's fun.
Very cool. Now, is
Yeah.
during training sessions, are there other gorillas in the space also, or is this a one-on-one session only?
So with him right now, he's a solitary male
Oh,
because
okay.
of his age. So he always has access to all of our other gorillas, whether that's through visual, tactile, scent. You know, he's always really close with them. And so, but we manage them best because of his age. He's
Right.
a teenage
Understandable.
boy. And
Yes.
I'm not sure who it was that worked with Senzu up here earlier, but I've heard that he's just like his dad. So
Very good. Very good.
all right,
So you said you've got other animal encounter stories, and we
I
have
do.
time. So what's your next one?
I do. Okay. So my next one was hopefully a once in a lifetime because I'm not gonna lie, I I was very scared, but it was one of the coolest things where animal training was actually taken into a real life experience, and we had to train an elephant right in front of us so we didn't die. So let me back up. So I went to Africa last year. And I was able to go through some connections of friends and just had the most amazing experiences ever. And we were on a night safari one time, and we are driving through the bush, and the path is just as big as our truck, right? And it's an open-ended, open space truck, pretty similar to the one in that photo I think I sent you. But that was obviously a day safari because this one I don't have any photos from. So it's at nighttime, we're driving along this little path, and all of a sudden, yeah, one of those trucks. So you can see, like, we can get that close to the elephant. And so we are driving through, you know, these insanely tight little spaces, and we all of a sudden smell a male in must, which I'm assuming you've smelled
That
before.
is a
And
distinct odor. Yes. Yes. You
yeah,
know that long. Yes.
yes, and it just hit us like a brick. And then we realized that we are completely encased in a herd of elephants.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so
And
we
this is
went,
nighttime.
yeah, at
Oh,
night. And you can't see anything except because you're in the middle of Africa, so there's no light pollution. It's just what's on your car. And so we drive in the middle of this herd, and then the guide very intelligently shut everything off, said, we're just going to sit here. And so they were munching right all around us. I mean, I'm talking like, sorry, I'm trying to look at my camera. There's these elephants this close to me, just eating and doing their thing. And all of a sudden, the male had, I guess, kind of walked away. I'm trying to think of exactly how it happened. And so we had turned on the lights, turned on the engine to try to say, hey, it's time to go. We're going to keep going. And all of a sudden, then the male started vocalizing and getting ready to charge. And because we had put the lights on, and it was a situation where when the safari guide says, oh shit, you know that something is potentially questionable.
right.
And so we were at this back and forth with this elephant for a good 10 to 15 minutes, and he is musty, so you know his behavior is unpredictable, and he is ready to charge, and he starts to come to the truck a couple times. And so what we had to do was, the guide, he was amazing, and you know, this is all amazing for him, but he was trying to figure out anything to do to get this elephant to back off, and it was not working. So I was like, we have to train him. And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, when he does something that we like, we have to give him something he likes. And he's like, what does he like? And I was like, back away. And so it ended up being that we had to actually use like that positive reinforcement, like whenever the elephant would calm down and, you know, not be rearing up, like standing right. And he was 15 feet in front of our truck maybe,
Wow.
which is nothing for a full-grown African elephant.
That's a couple of strides, right?
Yeah, and so we literally had to sit there and basically train him that, hey, we'll leave you alone if you leave us alone. And it was, Rick, it was terrifying.
Well, yeah, and here's something to add. I mean, if anyone watching does not know, when a male elephant's in must, they are normally 6 months out of the year, they're probably just a regular old elephant. But the 5 to 6 months that they're in must, their testosterone skyrockets. And that is because they have to challenge other bulls to have the rights to breed. And it drives them to the point where, you know, there's nothing else on their mind but to be a strong, assertive male to enforce anything that I don't like needs to go away. And there's been plenty of documentation that they can damage things quite a bit in that mindset. And so, yeah, I would have had my heart in my throat during that process as well.
It was so scary. It was really neat to see though, because again, like, I think I've learned, and this is going to sound cheesy as all get out. But I see that question. I'll get to that in 1 second. It's going to sound cheesy as all get out, but I've become such a better human because of being an animal trainer and working with animals. And you learn so much about, you know, that positive reinforcement that we sit and say all the time within our community. But it really is one of those things that is, you can take it to any language, any human, any living thing. Yep. And when you show respect, you're going to get that respect back. And so to answer the question, how did we get away eventually? He wanted us to back up. And so in order for us, we didn't want to get killed. And so in order to get that balance, we backed up. So we had to back slowly out of the bush, and he didn't like the lights. And so we had to turn the headlights off, and then we had to slowly back out of the bush. Very slowly. And it was funny because then we ran into a hippo herd, and we were just like, we can't do this again. But the hippos were like, we don't want to do this either. So they all went in the water, and we went safely, thankfully.
I'm about to say, if that story continues, I have to deal with a hippo herd.
I know, at that point, I think we all laughed because we were like, how do we go from an elephant herd with a male in must that is not happy with our presence to a 15 hippos? And we're like, come on. But that was the joy of it. So
in retrospect, how freaking awesome was that drive?
Oh my gosh.
Goodness.
It was so great. I mean, Africa, they call her mother Africa for a reason. She teaches you a lot. She's
absolutely
beautiful.
What part were you in?
So I actually did, my friends hated me for this. I said it would be a great idea to fly into Joburg, so Johannesburg, drive out east to Kruger, and then drive down southwest through the Lesotho area, and then right when you hit like Kenton-on-Sea, Port Elizabeth, take that whole coast to Cape Town. So over 2.5 weeks, we covered 1,700 miles in a car with 4 of us.
Wow.
So it was a really fun trip, but I think a lot of my friends at the end of the day were like, Rachel, we need sleep. We did do Cairo as well. So I guess that's technically Africa, but it's North Africa.
North, yeah. Well,
so do I have time for one more?
Yes, you do.
Okay. So then the last one that I wanted to talk about, Chopper approves the message.
Good job, Chopper.
The last one that I want to talk about too is, you know, going back to, you know, this career in this field, and all these conversations are very cyclical. And so when I was in Africa, one of the things I really was excited about was seeing the African penguin populations out there. Right. I used to work with African penguins, and they hold a very dear place in my heart. And so my friend who had been out there maybe a year and a half prior to me going said, you're going to get on this boat, you're going to go to this island, and you're going to see hundreds and hundreds of penguins, and it's going to be amazing. And so we get on this boat, and we go to this island, and we see 10 penguins. And it was one of those things that I was like, well, what's going on? And so then we were like, okay, well, we'll go to Cape Town, and we'll go to Boulder Beach. You're going to see all these penguins there.
Yes.
We go at dusk when they're supposed to be on the beach and doing all these things, and we see like 5. And so it was one of those really sombering conservation messages of, obviously there are more than 15 penguins in South Africa. That is, you know, that's obviously not what's going on. But even over the course of 1 to 2 years, watching that population decline at the rate that it is, was something that really hit me home. And you can ask any of my friends. I think I talked about the penguin for 5 months straight once I got back, because it really hit me hard. But we went out to the island where we were supposed to see hundreds of penguins, and instead saw dozens of shipping boats and oil rigs and all these commercial fishing boats. And hearing about conservation is one thing, and seeing it unfold and fall apart in front of your eyes is a whole nother thing. And so that was, I think, one of my most memorable animal experiences, because that was what really sparked me to want to do more. You know, working with these amazing animals in a zoo and everything is something that will change anyone's life forever.
Right.
And working in stranding and rehabilitation also changes you. But going to the African penguin stronghold of the world and seeing 10 of them changes you too. And so that's kind of what prompted me to want to do a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to get into now and break into more of that, because it was certainly memorable. Maybe not in the best way, but hopefully in a productive way, if that makes sense.
Well,
So.
yeah, I mean, it's still impactful either way, you know. I mean, there's yeah, a wide variety of ways you can be impacted and moved to take action. You did send a picture with some penguins. Do you want me to share that one?
Sure. So that was we went to Sand Cobb.
Okay.
They're like, do you want to come help and feed the penguins? And you know, who doesn't want to be surrounded by 25 penguins? So that was that.
Explain what sand cob is. Some people might not know.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So sand cob is oh my gosh, I'm horrible at acronyms. It's a giant bird rescue. So they deal with seabirds along the South African coast, anything cormorants, anything like that. But a huge focus is on the African penguin, whether that's oh, Stephanie knows all about this.
Yes, he does.
She has an amazing project going on with the penguins right now.
Yep.
And so Sand Cobb does a lot of rehabilitation work with them. They help with their oil spills, their nesting, anything that's going to help with that conservation or that penguin conservation. So I had a photo of me on the boat, but I looked really sad and upset about the penguin island. And so I didn't want to share that with you, because you would say, Rachel, what is this?
No, I would share it. No big deal.
So yeah, it was really an eye-opening trip in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, and so what you're doing here with the feeding at Sand Cobb, are you helping with birds that are being rehabilitated from like oil spills or other issues, or are these non-releasables?
So if my memory serves me right, all of the ones that were in this area right here, the majority of them were non-releasable.
Okay.
I'm trying to make sure I don't misspeak. So
Well,
they have this big area where they have a lot of the residents that are non-releasable, because if they can be released, then they don't want them to be habituated to everything that you're seeing right there.
Understood. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they don't want that happening on the beach. They don't want, as cute as it would be, they don't want that penguins coming up to humans. So I believe that all of those were, oh, thank you, Stephanie, South African Foundation for the Conservation of Coastal Birds. That is what Sand Cobb stands for.
Yay, Stephanie.
And so yeah, I think those were mainly non-releasable ones. So they had a lot of different areas in the back where they would have the rehabilitation pens where either they were getting clean from oil, learning how to swim again, if they were malnourished. They had where the area where they were raising the chicks,
right.
Had a very, very nice setup. So we were able to go there and visit and see everyone there and spend a lot of time learning exactly what they do and how they do it.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you did it. You got all 3 stories in.
I did. I told you I would do I wouldn't go too far over.
No, that's great. Like I said, I mean, because it's Friday and then the time of day, I actually have a little extra wiggle room. So if we go over the 30 minutes, it's no big deal. So I appreciate your enthusiasm and excitement to share stories. Because like I said, selfishly, it's really enjoyable for me to hear them. So.
Oh, I love that you're doing this. So it's a fun way for all of us to get off and share stories. So.
There's a couple more things we want to cover quickly before we wrap up, though.
Sure.
I have one question I always ask everybody at the end, but then I also want to cover where people can find you other than here on Instagram. Is there anything else you're doing? Do you have a website? Are you on Twitter, Facebook? Do you have a YouTube channel? Anything else you want to let people know how they can find you?
Yes. So I do have a website. It's under a lot of construction right now because I remade it and then COVID happened. And so I'm having to remake it again. So the easiest way to find me is on Instagram, Rachel Meets Planet. We are actually, me and my very good friend Ashley are starting a new podcast though. And so it is actually airing.
The Chopper's very excited about that.
It is actually airing this Sunday. We are actually going to be... I'm so sorry. Thank you for your patience.
It's all right. Bring him back on. Bring him back on. Go get it. Bring him back on.
Oh my goodness. All right.
He was just excited about the announcement of the podcast. So
He was. So we actually are airing a podcast. It starts this Sunday. I'm going to be posting about it all over my Instagram. It is called Lions, Tigers, and Beers because me and my friend Ashley are over the age of 21 and do like to enjoy adult beverages. We actually have a very, very special guest as our first episode. Her name might be Stephanie Arney if you want to hear more about penguins. She's commenting on this below. Yes, Stephanie. So we're going to be releasing that on Sunday. We have a lot of great interviews that we've already done. We're super stoked to be able to share those. So the whole purpose of that podcast is to really get a lot of conservation projects out there. We want to have casual conversations so people are able to feel a little bit more eased in starting it, because sometimes people want to help with conservation, but they don't know how.
Right.
And so we want to be able to bring these people on, talk about their projects, what they're doing, and not only figure out how people can learn about it, but how they can help in their everyday actions. So someone say beer. Yes, we do.
Yes, Vinny. Her new podcast, you can drink beer while she's talking about conservation. It's a wonderful concept.
Yeah.
Vinny and everyone else wants to know, is this podcast going to be distributed on all platforms, or is there somewhere specific they need to go?
It'll be across all platforms. So we have it on, oh my gosh, I set it up and I can't even remember. I swear, with my age, I should know a lot more about social media than I do. But it's on Spotify, iTunes. It'll be available on all of those things. And if you check on my Instagram, I will have links to it. And also my Instagram will have a link to the Instagram that we just started for that. It's Lions, Tigers, the letter N, Beers. So Lions, Tigers, and Beers. And so I'll make sure that it's posted all over my Instagram as well, so people can easily find that.
All right. So the main thing that people can find you is going to be on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have links for the podcast, and eventually, when your website's not being constructed, you'll have a link, I'm assuming, to your website available also. Okay.
Yes,
perfect.
Exactly.
Perfect.
It'll all be on Instagram. So that's my main hub, because again, I feel like I'm such an outdoorsy person that when I try to learn social media, I'm like, I need one hub for it. You'd think I'd be better than this, but to tell you the truth, I'm just learning along with everyone else.
It can be a time suck to manage a lot of accounts too. I can tell you that. So I completely understand. You've got other things to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair enough. Okay, so the last question I like to wrap up with, because it kind of opened with talking about we all have our spiels and this sort of thing. I know this has happened to you undoubtedly. You have given a nice presentation or talk to whether it's a keeper talk or whatever, about the plight of the gorilla, what's going on with them, or the penguins, or any other species. And someone in the audience, after it's kind of dispersed, comes up to you and says, "Hey, I would love to help out. I want to do something to help, but I'm just one person. What can I do?" What's your response to that? Whether it's an 8-year-old child, or a 45-year-old man, or somewhere even a 90-year-old person, what would you say that the average citizen that they can do, that they will have the understanding that they're making a difference for conservation?
Right. Well, the first, I think, step is to realize that any difference is a difference, and that's important. And so, we can sit here and talk about anything for a gorilla or a penguin and what to do. And if you follow the podcast, we will leave each episode with a daily item that you can do. But the biggest difference is realizing that you can make a difference. And so it's all of the small things and actions that we do imperfectly together, which really makes it a big, perfect wheel of conservation. But if you have old cell phones in your house and you want to recycle them for gorillas, that's a huge thing to help too.
Oh, it's true. It's true. This came up in one of the other lives, but it's worth repeating. I don't know. I'm sure you have a spiel on this. Would you want to share with everyone? These are your animals you're working with.
Sure. So what a lot of people, honestly don't even realize about conservation is that every animal has their own conservation plight, right? And so I thought I was this big conservationist before I started working where I do now with gorillas, and I knew how to save the oceans and everything. And then I get there and they're telling me that cell phones are actually decimating gorilla populations. And I was like, no, that's not possible. What do you mean? And so it was being able to set that aside. And so what's happening with gorillas and cell phones right now is there's a mineral inside of them called coltan. And coltan is predominantly mined in equatorial Africa, where gorillas call their native home. And so in order to get that coltan out of the ground, they set up large-scale mining operations. And it not only takes away their habitat loss, but it brings a lot of miners into the middle of Africa, where they have nothing to eat except for what's around them. What's around them? gorillas. And so with the lost my train of thought. It's been 3 months since I've given a keeper chat in this spiel.
Well,
They're getting this fresh keeper chat.
Let's get it going.
And so what happens with this coltan is they set up these mining operations. They're decimating the forests that gorillas need to survive. And they're also, unfortunately, killing them as part of the bushmeat industry. So the simplest thing to do, recycle your cell phone, right? So if you take it to Sprint, AT&T, Verizon, Best Buy, any place that they can reuse it, they can actually pull that coltan out, remove that coltan, and then put that in a new device. And so it's something that is said a lot, is that reduce, recycle, reuse. But honestly, that is one of the biggest things in so many ways. Yeah. And so sometimes people just don't realize cell phones are a part of that. So.
Right, and it's not just cell phones. You know, if you have an iPad or if you have any sort of tablet device or any touchscreen device, a lot of computers have touchscreens now too. It's really, really important that you recycle them when you're done. Yes. If you have privacy concerns, you can do factory resets and wipe them clean. You can go through and hand delete stuff before you do that. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch for cleaning it. But then finding somewhere that you can truly recycle these products, it is so important, because these minerals can be smelted back down, reused again, and they're just as good as if they had mined them. The difference, just like Rachel said, is there's no gorillas being harmed for this. And the other part of that mining process they use, it's been outlawed for quite a while here in the US, but other countries it's still okay to do. It's called strip mining. So it wipes out, they don't go digging down in a tunnel. They just wipe out complete hillsides. And all of that is usually washed away with high pressure water. Well, that goes downhill into a stream, and then also pollutes and damages that ecosystem by completely clouding up that water and choking out life all the way down that stream. So it's really, there's many layers to that. And just a simple fact of, if you have an old phone you just happen to keep in your drawer because you don't know what to do with it. You know, we hear about every phone company coming up with an upgrade every year, something new. And this was at the holidays, everyone wants their new tech. I'm just as guilty. I love new tech. It's fun to get your hands on it, but you have to realize, do something productive with that old tech, whether it's hand it down to someone in your family to reuse it and keep using it, or turn it in to get recycled. It really does make a difference for our gorillas and the ecosystem that they live in.
100%. Everything that you said is spot on.
Well, thank you. It's kind of what we do.
You know what you're doing a little bit.
Your second day on the job. I'm doing okay.
Absolute pro.
Well, Rachel, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. It has been an absolute pleasure getting to know you via this little chat. I'm looking forward to the podcast that's coming out. For anybody who's watching right now, a lot of questions and stuff came up scrolling through the comments here. I will save this to IGTV. Unfortunately, through that process, Instagram does not carry over those comments that you have placed in there. So if you have a question for Rachel or for myself, in about an hour or two, I'll have this posted on my account. I'll put in my stories that it's there, and you can swipe up and link to it. And if you have something you want to, tag Rachel or ask something in the comments, we'll come back and answer for you and make sure we got all the questions covered for you.
Perfect.
Oh, all right. Well,
thank you
again,
so much for having me on here, Rick. This has been so fun. It was so nice to formally meet you, through social distancing.
Yeah, right. And we don't have to wear masks with this social distancing, so it's easier to hear each other.
It is nice. It is so nice.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to have you, I'm going to sign you off, and then I'll sign off to my audience. How's that sound?
All right. Perfect. Bye. Thank you so much.
Take care, Rachel.
You too.
All right, that was super fun. It's one of the cool things about this and doing all this is that a handful of the people, probably over half, I've met in person. But the other half, these are people I've met either on social media or through someone else that I interviewed. They said, hey, you should interview this person too. So this is great. Rachel and I've never met in person. We've connected on social media not too long ago. And it's just cool. It's just cool to hear these stories and be able to chat with people doing the same kind of work that I do and that sort of stuff. So thank you all for joining us during our live. Like I said, I'll post this over on IGTV to watch later, and feel free as always to leave comments. If you aren't already following Rachel, you probably should, because she's doing some pretty cool stuff. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a good one.
Oh.